I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 87. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. I am going to be sharing today with you on the podcast more of the March Sprinters lessons learned that they're documenting. Law firm owners that attend the sprints or participate in the sprints, their lessons learned are freaking gold. They are principles that, I've said this before on the podcast, but it's worth saying again in case you haven't heard those episodes. The lessons that they're learning are experientially learned. They aren't learned because they consumed something. When you read a book, that's consumption. When you listen to a podcast, that's a form of consumption. And we can learn lessons that way. That's a really brilliant way of learning. But when you apply the learning, it's totally different. It lands it's almost like, okay, you knew it intellectually. Now you know it experientially. And that's a much deeper kind of learning. So I wanted to share with you the lessons from the March sprint that I haven't yet shared. I did share some a few weeks ago, but now the sprint is wrapped up and I want to share with you, I've kind of categorized the lessons that I hadn't yet shared with you. The first category that we're going to go into today, really all of the lessons are very self-development oriented. And the reason that they tend to be that way is because I tell them, one of the criteria for the lessons, that it has to be about you and how you operate. Something that you want to carry forward with you. Maybe it's because you did something that you're really proud of and you want to capture it and be able to carry that forward. And that's a lesson. Or maybe it's something that wasn't ideal and you learned from it. And so you're going to capture the lesson and carry it forward. But either way, it's not a lesson about the world and how the world works. It's a lesson about you and how you operate. So all of this is self-development-ish. But there are some that are more internal than others, meaning really based on the law firm owner's perspective and how a perspective can be shifted. So very internal thoughts, beliefs, feelings, all of that. I'm going to start with those because they're really core and foundational. And then I'm going to also share with you on this podcast a second smaller category, which is about taking space for thinking and how important that is. And then I'm going to share one of my favorite lessons of all time that falls into this category, and then give you some thoughts that this has really sparked for me. I've been thinking a lot about this one particular lesson, and so I want to share it with you and offer some valuable nuggets that maybe you can take forward with you. And then in the future, we're going to have lessons around numbers and tracking, around calendaring and planning, and then around execution is the last category, or implementation of what you've planned. So that's how this will roll out. So today we're going to start with the more internal perspective end of things. So here we go. Don't allow overwhelm to be overwhelming. This is a weird one, I know, but just sit with this for a second. Don't allow the overwhelm to be overwhelming. Here's why this lesson was powerful, why I chose it to share with you guys. There are going to be there's going to be times that you feel overwhelmed. We aren't robots. We all have emotions, and we all at times, despite our best efforts, feel this sense of overwhelm. Allowing that to just be what it is, and allowing overwhelm to be there while you move forward anyway, is very different than being overwhelmed by your overwhelm. So see if you can relate to this at all, because I think we've all probably dealt with this to some extent. When you do feel overwhelmed, it's almost like we have drama about the fact that we're overwhelmed, and that spins us further off track. If you can just allow what you're experiencing to not be a problem, it's just there. It's a feeling. Feelings don't get to rule the roost, right? We get to allow the feelings, or we can resist the feelings, which that tends to even create even more problems. And when I say allow, the best way I know how to explain this, because of practice and because of watching clients, is when you allow an emotion to be there and it's not a problem, that doesn't mean that you resist it and push it down and use willpower to pretend it's not there and get your stuff done anyway. What it means is that you just stop and you pause and you take a deep breath and you allow overwhelm to be there fully, to experience that emotion. Overwhelm is an emotion. It's a feeling. Allow that feeling to actually run its course throughout your body. And when you take a breath and let that happen, and then you move forward anyway, then you stay on track and the overwhelm is not a problem. When you are paralyzed because you feel overwhelmed, and it's almost like there's drama about the fact that overwhelm is there, not only are you not processing that feeling, you're just layering on top of it more drama and more mental drama and more mental overwhelm. And so this was a powerful lesson. And I really love that the participant shared this, because when you apply this, don't allow the overwhelm to be overwhelming. Just allow the overwhelm. Take a breath. It is there. We're going to deal with this at certain points. We don't want to be running with overwhelm constantly. And it is important to understand that anything you feel does come from what you're thinking. It doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from your perspective about the outside world. But when you experience it, take a breath, allow overwhelm to run its course, and then take the next step anyway, instead of freaking out and being more overwhelmed because you're overwhelmed. So hopefully that lands. That really spoke to me when this person brought that up. So I wanted to share it with you guys. Okay. Intention is so fragile. And that's it. That's the lesson. But I liked this lesson because intention is fragile. People have the best of intentions all the time, but it doesn't mean they follow through with anything. So your intention really needs to be backed up by a plan. And then your job is to honor the plan. But just having good intentions doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Intention is so fragile. Articulating my goals to my team reduces overwhelm. This is great. I think sometimes as the owner, we tend to carry it all on our shoulders, even though we have people that are members of our team. And this is a really classic example of continuing to operate the same way when you have to start operating differently as your firm grows. And one way to operate differently is to actually articulate the goals to your team, because it can reduce overwhelm for you, because then they're on board and they can help. They can actually work towards it with you. So that felt like an important one to share with you all. Stating my why or compelling reason mitigates resistance. This is another one I loved, because I talk a lot about you have to know why you're doing what you're doing, because it's going to be freaking hard. And the more compelling reason you have, which doesn't need to matter to anyone else but you, and it doesn't need to be pretty and this altruistic vision statement. No, you just need to know, why are you building the firm you're building? Why are you doing what you are doing? And when you have a hard enough why, it means your commitment is that much stronger, which means you'll be more resilient when you get knocked down or when things don't go as planned. And resilience is the metric that in studies, it is the key metric in how resilient one is that will prove if they are successful or not. So resilience is important, and you can't have resilience. You can't keep getting back up again or keep pivoting or keep doing the next thing if you don't have a good enough reason to do it, because it's really hard. But if you have a good enough reason, you'll stick with it. So being able to come back to your why or your compelling reason, it mitigates the resistance that you have. It just keeps you going in the right direction. Stopping and thinking instead of just reacting provides the opportunity to take care of yourself. We react a lot to our calendars, to the events of the world, when our plans don't go as we had planned. And then instead of actually pushing pause, looking at your plan, evaluating it, what needs to shift, make some conscious choices, conscious decisions, and then go again. And when you can do that, whether we're talking about your calendar and the week or a project that's getting off track and some new curveballs are being thrown at you, it doesn't matter. When you are stopping and thinking instead of just reacting, provides the opportunity to take care of yourself. When you react to what's happening instead of consciously staying in control of your time, your attitude, your perspective, and the actions that you're going to take, it will typically be at the cost of you. If you actually stop to think and make conscious decisions, as I just shared, then you can make sure that you're taken care of as well. Meaning, there's times where we just grow and as we are growing, it's at the cost of us. We don't realize it until we are experiencing burnout of some sort or exhaustion or unhappiness. But that's what can easily happen. And the reason that happens is because people don't stop and consciously decide what they're going to do when things don't go as planned. So that's a really important takeaway. And I loved that they shared that. Solve the problem. Don't ruminate. Don't put emotion into it. Just solve the problem. This kind of goes back to this idea of us having drama around a problem. It's better if you just... It's okay if you're pissed about something or you're frustrated or you are sad or whatever it might be or disappointed. It's okay to take 5 minutes and just be that and really allow yourself to sink into that. But then solve the problem. And what most people don't do is they don't take the time to feel whatever it is that they're feeling and they just keep trucking on and it doesn't solve problems. It's like this layer of crap that you are bringing to the problem solving mode because your head is not clean. Mentally, you are not cleaned up. And so it's harder to solve the problem. So when it says don't ruminate, don't put emotion into it, just solve the problem, I totally agree with that. And if you need a few minutes before you do that, take a few minutes. But make sure you process whatever you need to process so that you come clean to the problem. And that if you come clean to the problem mentally and emotionally, then you won't ruminate. You won't put emotion into it. You will just solve the problem. Indecision creates anxiety. That's so true. People who stay in indecision with something big or something small, whether it's a tendency and that's how you tend to live your life, or whether it's just this one thing, it creates anxiety. If you just make a call and go all in on it, you'll be much better off, for sure. People are worried about making the right decision and they stay on that and they stay on that and they mull it over and it's just this loop. It's like limbo. It is draining. Mentally, it's draining, even if you don't realize it, because there's a part of your brain that's being dedicated to weighing this all out. And instead, you could just make a decision and then it cuts through all the crap. And then you just have to go all in and have your own back and on that decision. Who says what decision is right? You get to decide what's right. So just make a call, because whichever direction you go, you can prove that to be right. So just make a call and go for it. And if you decide later that wasn't the best decision, no big deal. At least you didn't spin your wheels and hold things up and also have anxiety at the same time with spinning and indecision. Indecision creates anxiety. When you get through a small mental block, it gets easier, and accountability can help with that because you've crossed your own mental threshold. I liked this and I put it in here because I do think this speaks to coaching. I think not just accountability, but coaching. Someone asking you the right questions, quality questions that gets you to see and to come up with your own answers. That is the best way to get through mental blocks and to break through what this participant coined as your own mental threshold, because then you get to the next level of perspective and attitude and how you think about things. And then from that, it's almost like taking the elevator up a floor, and then you have a different view entirely when you look out the window than you did one floor down. And then you keep doing that and you keep pushing yourself to think higher quality and higher quality. And so this participant's saying, when you get through a small mental block, it gets easier. And because you've crossed your own mental threshold. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And so my my visual in my head when you get through a small mental block is you take the elevator to the next floor and you take the elevator to the next floor. So I loved this lesson. Intentionality is the best weapon to fight the war against mediocrity. This is in quotation marks. And so I thought, oh, they must have been quoting someone. So I went to Google it and I can't figure out who said this. So I just want to make that clear in case this is a quote and someone listening knows who it is. I don't know who it is and I did some research. But I wanted to share that because this was in quotation marks. Intentionality is the best weapon to fight the war against mediocrity. We just talked about intentions earlier and about how intentions are fragile. But intentions alone are fragile, right? If you are taking action and there's no intention behind it, then you're probably going to be landing at some mediocre spot. You're going to be creating mediocrity. But if you are intentional and your actions are lined up with your intentions and you follow through, come on, unstoppable. Consistency creates confidence. I totally agree with that. All of you can probably relate. This one is very similar. If you stay disciplined and work on one thing every day, you can surprise yourself with a big win because your unconscious will connect the dots and give you an easy win. But it's about you keep showing up. It's consistency, small things, turtle steps, for example, which is something I say a lot in the sprints. Every day, take a turtle step. Something I've heard Tony Robbins say was that people overestimate what they can accomplish in the short term and they underestimate what they can accomplish in the long term. And man, is this totally true. For any of you out there who have tried Monday Map, one of the biggest reasons Monday Map fails for people in the beginning is because they're putting too much into their week. They think they can accomplish more in 1 week than what is actually physically possible. But they aren't being honest with themselves and they aren't giving the right amount of time on the calendar for certain things. They are cutting corners. And so people will overestimate what they can accomplish in a week. But if they were just honest and they actually made a plan that was realistic, they would blow their own mind because week over week, they would actually accomplish what they put in their calendars. And those small things, because it seems not enough. But if you actually do that, you will blow your own mind with what that means for the long term. Next one. Anticipate resistance and be ready for it. This is true. Resistance is going to be a part of your journey until you're just done trying to do new things. When you are setting out to create something, whether it's a result, whether it's your firm, no matter what it is, on your path, you have to expect that there's going to be resistance to doing certain things and for different reasons, but it's never going to not be there if you're trying to do something great. The more you can anticipate it and be ready for it, then when it comes, just like any other emotion that comes, instead of shoving it down and saying like, I'm going to use willpower, I'm going to do this thing anyway, I know the resistance is there, that's okay. But I'm telling you, if you want to develop yourself, then you have to just take a breath, feel the resistance, whatever it is. Allow it to just be there. Take a breath and let it run its course. Stop trying to make it go away. That's not going to work. So anticipate the resistance, be ready for it. And if you can handle that with a deep breath and allow it and move forward anyway, you're going to be developing that skill of experiencing emotion that doesn't feel good and moving forward anyway. That is a skill. When you try to stuff it down and you just use willpower to plow forward, that's exhaustible and that's not developing yourself. So that's why I really liked this lesson about anticipate the resistance, be ready for it, and not in a way like brace yourself, it's coming, not like that, but more just be ready for it so that when it arrives, nothing has gone wrong. Of course it's here. That's part of the journey. Take a breath, allow the resistance, and take your step forward anyway. And it's similar to things that you'll hear that sound cheesy, but when you learn them through experience, it changes everything. Like feel the fear and do it anyway. They aren't saying shove down the fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear, take a breath, really feel it in every cell of your body, and then move forward anyway. It's a big difference. It's subtle, right? It seems like a small difference, but it makes a big difference in the end with your progress, not just with the thing you're working on, but it's like a meta skill that you can take forward with you, and that makes you pretty unstoppable. So I loved that lesson from the participant. You have to start being on to yourself, and you have to keep being on to yourself. This is one participant liked this when I mentioned this at some point, but it's true. You have to be on to yourself. You have to catch yourself. Like, when are you making justifications and excuses? And when is it really need to be that way, right? Like, it's very easy to justify, especially when you have important work in front of you. So it's very easy to justify why you didn't make headway on the thing you said you were going to make headway on because a client called and this matter is really important. You have to be really careful. And so you have to be on to yourself when you're full of it or when you are being very honest. So be on to yourself. What's your typical justifications, excuses, patterns, habits, and just be on to yourself and keep being on to yourself. Keep observing to watch yourself so that you learn more and more about how you move forward. And do you really like your reason for, not doing what you said you were going to do? Be on to yourself. So that was a good lesson. Okay, there's 4 lessons here that talk about giving yourself space to think. And I batched them together and I thought I'd share them together. The first, if you give yourself the space to think and then take action, you will create momentum and clarity. It's important to always have the space to think, so calendar it. In sitting down to give myself space to think, the tentacles of my brain will reach new ideas. And then the final one. If you give your unconscious all the information it needs and the space to think, it will figure out what the next step is that you need to take. So I'm sharing those because most of the time people don't give themselves the space to think. And they're just busy. They're caught up in the busyness of things. And your brain is a valuable asset. I would argue the most important asset to your firm. Eventually, maybe you can make it not that way, but if you're listening to this podcast, you're a long way from that. So your brain is the most important asset. And knowing that, how are you going to give it the space to produce ideas so that it can give you a return? Assets are something it's a valuable resource that you want to give you a positive return on your investment. It will give you a positive return if you actually give it the space to do its job. If you don't give it the space to do its job and you just stay busy, of course it's not going to produce these ideas and generate some creative solutions, or there's so many things that your brain is really useful for. And you don't want somebody else doing that. You don't want someone else to outsource the ideas that you input into your firm. Sometimes you can look around, you can gather ideas, you can see whatever other people are doing. But if you don't sit down to use your brain, because it has its own unique set of knowledge and past experiences and skills. And so when you apply, you're actually thinking about a principle. Ideas that you generate are very unique to you. No one else's brain is going to come up with the exact ideas you did because they don't have the exact background as you. And they aren't in this exact moment as you. So giving yourself the space to think, ultimately, it generates money. But it's indirect and people don't see it like that. And the more space you can give yourself to think, the better off you will be, and the better off your firm will be, and the better off your clients will be and their experience. So don't cut corners with that. And there are some people, this sprint specifically, people really got that. And it's paying off for them. And it's something that they're not going to leave behind. They're going to keep carrying forward. And I would encourage you to think about how you want to do that too. Well, okay, now we're at the final lesson, at least for this episode. And it's one that really struck me, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I've saved it till the end. I think all of us could do some good pondering this lesson that was given by a participant. To set to give a little context, this participant has been in every single sprint that we've offered in the last year and has also built a firm for over 30 years. I don't know the exact number, but over 30 years he's had his firm. And he's built something really beautiful, something he's really proud of. And naturally, as you all can relate to, as he's building it and where he's gotten right now, he's still holding on to a lot that he doesn't have to hold on to, but he just has been holding on to it. And he has goals for his own life and he also has goals for the firm. And he's realizing that actually him letting go or transferring responsibility inside of the firm is going to allow him to actually do more of the things he wants to do and enjoy in his own life and help the success of the firm. And he's really been coming around to this. It's more than just delegating, right? He's really talking about transferring responsibility. But the lesson that he gave, I think, is good for all of us, no matter where you are with building your firm. And I think it's a good question to ask yourself in business, but also maybe in life. His realization was, I am both the problem and the solution. Where is there an opportunity for you to have this perspective about what's going on? Because the statement that I am the problem and I am the solution, it's a very empowering statement. There's a lot out in the world about you need to take full responsibility for every result you have in your own life. And, there's different ways of saying that. And I agree with that totally. But I think when people have a certain angle that they look at that from, they use it to beat themselves up like they should be better. The results I have in my life there's some things that suck. And so I must suck at this. And instead, a much more empowering way to approach what you want to shift or a result that you want to create or challenge that's presenting itself to you, a better way, a more empowering way of looking at that, a higher quality way of looking at that is, I am the problem and I am the solution. It's a high quality thought. It's a high quality belief that will deliver you to a high quality result when you ask yourself that question. And, in this case, he's recognizing I am the problem. I am the bottleneck, right? Like I am the thing that's preventing what I truly want. And I also have the opportunity to be the solution, which means to stop being the bottleneck in the specific ways that he sees that it's happening, or to transfer responsibility, even if it feels hard, to do so in a way that feels responsible and making progress towards that, right? He is the way. Because if he doesn't allow for it, it will never happen. It doesn't matter if he has the perfect person to transfer responsibility to standing in front of him. He has to make that call and he has to decide. And it was for him, you could feel the internal shift that happened when he was sharing this lesson. You could feel that there was a real shift that had happened with him realizing I am the problem and I am the solution. And so I'm going to choose to step into being the solution. And there's a lot of fear that comes with that. There's a lot of, doubt, and there's all the stuff, all the mental blockages that can come with that. But it's okay. It's going to, if you want to be the solution and if you want to create this result for yourself, no one else can do it. It's you. You have to provide the way. And he can have help and all that, but it doesn't happen unless he has provided the way, right? So that's why he is the problem and he is the solution. It's full responsibility. How beautiful is that? And where can we apply that in our own life? It's so funny. So many of the principles we talk about here can certainly be applied in the firm and for growing the firm and for you as the owner. But so many of the principles we talk about here can also be applied to life. If you think about a tough relationship or you're experiencing challenges in a relationship right now, if you asked yourself this question, or if you were open to seeing that you are the problem and you are the solution, you would probably approach it much differently. And it's not that nobody else has any responsibility in the relationship, but all you can control is you and how you show up. And so if you are to think about that from that angle, I am the problem and I am the solution, what shifts? What shifts internally? And then what shifts will you make because of the internal shifts? What shifts will you make actually in the relationship? So this can be applied to so many things. If you're having a tough time with a team member, if there's a position that you just can't get filled with someone that you really, that is you appreciate is doing a job the way you want it done, whether it's you repeatedly have these ridiculous clients that are so problematic for you, if you took the approach and were just willing to have a look, it doesn't mean it's not about blame. You're not blaming yourself. That's not what this is about. It's about just taking a perspective of, actually looking at it and being willing to see maybe where you are the problem and where can you be the solution? Like what needs to happen in order for the result to be created that you really are looking to create. There's a quote that this lesson made me think about by Jerry Colonna. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. How are you complicit in creating the conditions you say you don't want? How are you complicit in creating the conditions you say you don't want? Isn't that so good? It's very similar. It's along the same lines. And I think we can all do ourselves some good to reflect from this place and think about the lesson that I just shared from the participant, and then maybe ponder this question that Jerry Colonna poses, which is, how are you complicit in creating the conditions you say you don't want? So, good food for thought. Let that roll around in your brain for the next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you to the Sprint participants who your brilliant lessons are going to be helping lots and lots of listeners. Thanks, everyone. See you here next week with the next batch of lessons. Bye-bye. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.